Once upon a time, there was a man named Stewart. Now, Stewart was an average man. He had no particularly outstanding character traits. If he were the victim of a horror film murderer, he would probably be the second to go, because there wasn't anything really valuable about him, nor was there anything terribly wrong either. Stewart was fortunate enough to be blissfully unaware of his lack of ultimate worldly importance. Every day, Stewart would drive home late from work, through empty streets, and take off his shoes. Then he would make himself a plain dinner and watch some plain television, then take a plain shower and fall into a deep sleep riddled with unimpressive dreams. However, one eerie night, his routine broke away from the norm and proved that change isn't always good for one's continued living. On this particular night, his ordinary lonely drive home was broken up by a car pulled over on the side of the road, with all of its doors thrown open and its lights flashing. Stewart, being a good Samaritan, despite the legal ramifications, decided to pull over to check out the car. At that moment, Stewart's life broke free of its binds of normalcy and monotony. As he approached, he heard a sound coming from the car. It sounded like a combination of nails on a chalkboard and an emu becoming frustrated while playing checkers with a tin can. Although the sound was unnerving, something pushed Stewart further towards the open doors. When he was close enough to see into the windows, he noticed that there was something red leaking all over the back seats. Then, suddenly, something grabbed Stewart's leg. Letting out an audible yelp, he pulled the passing plastic bag off his leg and felt silly for yelling about a stupid piece of plastic. He then noticed that the noise came from the wind blowing through a note on the dashboard of the car, stating that a combination of an empty gas tank, a lack of diapers, and a determined pooping toddler required the car's owners to walk for gas and leave the doors open for aeration. Then, Stewart realized the red stuff was really melted wax from a super creative pack of 20 red crayons. The car must have been in the sun all day, and melted the crayons. Knowing now that there was no one to help, Stewart decided to continue his drive home. On his way back to his car, he noticed someone had thrown a pack of mints out their window, so he decided to reward himself for his attempts at kindness by picking up the totally safe stranger candy. Though there was nothing inherently frightening about his encounter with the empty car, Stewart was still unsettled when he got back home. He took off his shoes like normal and started towards the kitchen to make a comfortably plain meal. When he opened the fridge, he let out a sudden gasp, because he realized he had forgotten to go grocery shopping for that week. Stewart sighed to himself and said, Looks like it will be another lonely night with my tub of peanut butter." Then suddenly he heard a loud thud and turned around quickly to see a knife sticking out of the ground. Though he was a little shaken, Stewart wasn't surprised because he realized when his clumsy friend had visited the previous night for strip Dungeons and Dragons, he had been playing with the kitchen knives and probably left it on the edge of the counter. It was only a matter of time before it fell. Having settled on an elegant peanut butter-based dinner, Stewart sat down in front of his plain television to watch the same old news channel he always did on Fridays. In the middle of the weather report, there was a breaking news report about a serial murderer who had escaped from prison. The reporter described how this criminal was known to target homes with only one resident and would mark his territory by shutting off the phones and television equipment. Then, there was an interview with the police chief who said, "We suggest that any bachelors who experience technical difficulties this evening should—" Then, the television set went silent, and the screen turned to white and black fuzz, then blacked out completely. The rest of the lights in the house followed suit. Stewart nervously reached towards the phone, and as he lifted it to his ear, he realized that he wouldn't hear the comforting sound of a dial tone. Then suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The kind of knock that requires an average, uninteresting man to change his shorts. As he approached the door, the knocking seemed to get louder. That was probably just a proximity effect due to the dampening effects of the air on sound waves. Expecting the worst, Stewart flung open the door to find a grungy-looking utility worker. The worker said, "Hey, a squirrel got into the transformer for your home's power lines. Sorry for the inconvenience and the smell. But you know what? The fried squirrel had a quite robust flavor." Wiping the sweat from his brow, Stewart said, "Oh, thanks for letting me know." The maintenance man decided to continue the lack of awkwardness in the conversation by picking up some small talk. He said, "Those stupid squirrels are giving everybody quite a scare with all this talk about serial murderers and stuff. Did you hear they caught the fella?" Stewart replied, No, I hadn't." As he longed to shut the door on another unfortunate situation of the night, the utility worker bid farewell, and as it finally closed, the door emitted a very satisfying thud that seemed to say, "You owe me a new pair of unsoiled trousers." After a dark hour or so, the power in the house had returned, and one could almost hear in the distance the satisfaction of a stomach filled with fresh grilled squirrel. With a terrible track record for his night, Stewart dreaded his trip to the bathroom for his nightly shower. As he stripped off his clothes, flashes of the film Psycho played through his mind. He couldn't help thinking that the squirrel-eating maintenance man had planned all of this for an elaborate shower murder. Oh, why did it have to be when I was naked? Isn't that just weirder for everyone? Stewart couldn't clear his mind as the water poured onto his supple skin. Then, suddenly, nothing particularly interesting happened because showers are unoriginal places to die. The relative success of his shower offered hope of a normal remainder of the night. To continue the trend, Stewart decided to relax by having one of the mints he found on the side of the road. Once he had a mint in hand, he threw it into his mouth, and his superbly mediocre aiming skills managed to allow the mint to enter his esophagus. Stewart watched his mediocre and uninteresting life flash before his eyes as he choked on the trophy of his initial kindness. Luckily, one particularly aggressive cough dislodged the sweet treat from his throat, and he sputtered as it flew across his plain room. At that moment, Stewart realized how little he had contributed to the world, and vowed that, from then on, he would no longer settle for being average. He would finally live and dream, and when he would dream big. But he promised not to stop until he had reached his dreams, and when everyone knew his name. Nothing could stop him from accomplishing his dreams after this revelation. Then, a massive meteor the size of a small bachelor's house dropped from the sky and crushed Stewart and his plain life. The moral of the story is to never owe a meteor money because it will find you and it will have its revenge.